Welcome in to the Gramlich and Mac Lane podcast presented by Ingles. We are going to talk some ACC spring updates today. And this episode, guys, is going to really be about Clemson. We've got to talk Clemson, what's going on there with some recent updates from the spring. We're going to do in our next episode for spring updates, a Florida State episode. These two teams that I think every ACC fan, no matter who you're a team of, you're interested in what's going on, keeping track of those institutions. But first, let's talk about where on earth we are. I am in Connecticut. Mac, tell the people where you are.
I'm in the great unknown in the West, the Northwest, in Seattle, Washington. I've got to tell you, KG, the trip out here was not ideal. About a 6 and some change flight. Listen, I know it's first class and that's great, but is it really enough? Like, is it big enough? That's the question.
You bougie now.
The answer is no. The answer, no. It's just I need like a recliner. If I'm going 6 hours of sitting, it's miserable. And this is the deal. I'm going to turn sideways. This is the much recline I get right here.
That's true.
I don't know when we changed that. I don't know when we changed from like really reclining to like this much, but it was brutal. Mm-hmm. So that was a super not fun flight. But this place is amazing. I mean, I've been to San Fran once to watch the drubbing that Clemson put on Alabama there. But that was the only time I've been out this way. So it's a really cool spot. Had some amazing seafood last night. Yeah, I'm excited to be in the in Lumen Field where the 12s hang out to watch the Seattle Sea Dragons kick it off. When you guys hear this game will be long over. But excited to experience this.
Mac, that is so cool to be in the Seahawks stadium. That stadium always looks awesome on TV. And I think I said this last week because when I did one of our intros last week, I thought you were in Seattle, but you obviously weren't, and I knew that. So now you're in Seattle. But I have said this before. I think the Seattle Sea Dragons is honestly maybe the best mascot in the whole world, perhaps besides the Seattle Kraken. Like, Seattle's just doing it big with their mascots, and so respect to that. What did you get last night? What kind of seafood did you get? Now I just want to live vicariously.
Oh, come on. Okay, now we get to really talk about this. All right, so I started, because I do courses when I dine. You don't just get a salad like KG loves to do. We'll talk about that in a second here. But started with this awesome seafood chowder. It was like local shrimp, scallops, crab, some potatoes, some corn, super good. And then they had these, like, I think they're called dungeon crabs. Have you heard of these?
Maybe.
Dungeon crabs, really good. Had like 2 clusters of those. And then fresh halibut.
Whew.
The halibut literally had swam up to the restaurant that day from Alaska. Really, really good. Had some type of bottom stuff. I have no idea what it was. Really nice butter sauce. It was absolutely killer, KG. It was an amazing dinner. Amazing dinner.
How nice.
All the while, by the way, I'm just sitting looking at beautiful Seattle. I was like across the ocean. I guess it's the ocean or a gulf or something. I'm across it just looking at Seattle. It was beautiful. It was a great time.
How nice of the halibut to swim down from Alaska just to be your dinner.
Right. Just for me.
How nice
I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, guys, Mac is living. That does sound quite delicious.
Right.
Quite delicious. So,
right. How's the ESPN cafe? It's pretty good.
Always great. Always elite. Honestly, the cafeteria at ESPN is really good. They make a lot of different stuff, and you can like go up there and order whatever you want. So it's always good. And of course, the peanut butter balls. Got to get those. Got to get that protein when you're late in the night and you're talking basketball. So always love those. But Mac, speaking of delicious things, we did talk about the Ingles salad bar last week on social media and on the pod. And if you missed our video, go check it out on YouTube. It's on YouTube Shorts, on my social media, on Mac's social media. And I love the Ingles salad bar. I've told people this many, many times for many, many years. It's the GOAT. It's the best in the game. And Mac, it was interesting, though, because I posted my salad video and you had to add on there at the end. You got to watch the video until the end. And you said, salad? We're talking salad?
Yeah.
So I feel like we have some meat content coming. Now, before we hear about what you're cooking, Mac, let's watch this video from Ingles about their amazing meat selection.
Did you know Ingles only sells USDA Choice and Prime cuts of meat? Maybe it's time to reward yourself. Our butchers cut all our meat fresh in the store every day. Grass-fed, organic, you name it. Not only that, we'll even cut it to order just the way you like it. And we grind meat fresh in the store multiple times a day. It's all in the bag. That's the best meat in town for the best folks in town. Ingles, low prices, love the savings.
KG, come on. I mean, I get it. That's kind of been your thing for a very long time. So it was natural. It was organic. That's where we started with organic lettuce. That was great. I was glad that we did that. But it's all about the meat. Come on, you guys just saw that video. The quality that Ingles has, it's unmatched. And so I wanted to do kind of a light transition. You guys will see this on my social media if you haven't already. Posted it last night. I went from, not just straight meat to a little bit of lettuce.
Oh,
and that's a taco.
how nice
ground
of you.
beef, that Ingles has right there. They make it for you right on, however many pounds you want, whatever you need. They grind it up. They produce it for you. And it's just so fresh, so good. So go check that out on my Instagram, Twitter, wherever you can find. YouTube will have a short video of it, I'm sure, of my Taco Tuesday at the Mac Lane House. Just a little slight. Just wanted to get, us transition. We'll go heavy duty, next week and into some real meat diving there.
Yeah, I feel like the salad spotlight is over. It is now time to talk meat with Ingles. But go check out your local Ingles. Find one near you. You can get a salad and some meat. You can get a nice little balance there. So, Mac, it's time for some spring ball updates. All right. There's some things that have been happening. Spring ball has begun. I know that some schools are also taking spring break either this week or next week. And so you kind of have that in between spring ball. And I want to start with actually some amazing news. It's not necessarily Clemson related. Then we'll talk all Clemson here on this episode. Virginia running back Mike Hollins was a full participant on the opening day of spring practices and has continued to participate. He, of course, was shot in the back during that terrible Virginia tragedy about 4 months ago, but has fully recovered and is back at spring practice. Mac, that is honestly one of the most incredible things I've ever heard. So just wanted to share that good news here.
Yeah, no question about it. When I saw that, you just have so much joy for him, in a dark place that he's been in and with those teammates, and can't again imagine every time we talk about it, it's just evil what happened. And for him to be back, I think that it's something that will not only encourage, but just kind of, boost the rest of his team and thinking, the horrible thing that he had to go through, that now he's back, like cherish every moment. Like I think of all these different examples of just terrible things that happen to guys, whether it's, illness, sickness, devastation, family, all this craziness. And then once they get back and they're in kind of this realm that just takes you out of everything, like football, basketball, whatever sport you play, like it just takes everything away for a little bit of time. And you can just be free and you can just go do what you love. And I know Mike is so excited to be back. I know his teammates are excited that he's out there, and really cool to be able to say that now in spring ball. And he's ready to go.
Love it. And how inspiring for the rest of the team too. I wanted to share that good news here on the pod. Okay, Mac, let's dive into the Clemson Tigers and just some of the things that we have seen and read about spring ball so far. I think the biggest thing we should start with, of course, is Garrett Riley and the addition of a new offensive coordinator at Clemson. Klubnik went on ACC Network. He talked about Garrett Riley and what we can expect from this new offense. This was his quote, Mac. "It's just electric. I think that's going to be the best way to describe this offense. We have the best defense in the country. We get to go against them every day. We are returning two of the best running backs in the country as well." And he also added, "We are not here to just have another year. We are here to win it all." And then he added this. I think this is really interesting. He said, "We went into a game last year with 80 plays, and now we're going in with 30-ish plays." He said, "It doesn't matter if they know what the play is. We're still going to be able to beat them at it." So that's interesting because I've never thought of this Clemson offense, even pre-Garrett Riley, to have that number of plays. And maybe you can, obviously, Mac, you would know a lot better, but walk me through what you're thinking when you see these comments from Cade.
Yeah, well, really, I mean, it's good when your quarterback's excited about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And when he uses words like electric and explosive and fun, I mean, that means, Clemson's pushing the ball downfield, and something that, quite frankly, for a couple of years, we just didn't see. Now, whether that was lack of ability or lack of playmakers to do so, however you want to look at it, or just lack of calling it, we hadn't seen that. And so now the things that I'm hearing is Clemson is, doing much more of that in practice, taking shots, which subsequently, I know we're talking about offense right now, but that helps the DBs too, right? Like that's practice. That's guys going downfield trying to make plays on offense or defense. Hearing about like the starting, throwing drills that Clemson's doing where it's the middle of the field, like we're pushing the ball downfield to open things up. Like that just helps everybody go, right? And so, again, things that we hadn't seen in great effect, for Clemson to be able to do. So I think people are really excited about that. Obviously, every time you hear about these players talking and then the things that they're doing, I can't wait to see with my own eyes. I'll be calling Clemson's spring game. I'll go down there for a couple of days, see some practice. So I can't wait to see that and just talk with Coach Riley. But yeah, I mean, when your QB's feeling that confident, in the first week or so of spring ball, that's a good thing. And I think what's really important too is that that end quote there. We're not just playing ball. We're going to win. Like that's where
win it all.
Clemson was. Yeah, that's where they were. For this 5, 6, 7 year stretch. Kind of took a 2-year hiatus, and now you think, are they back to doing that? I certainly think it's more than possible.
Well, a new sense of urgency, perhaps offensively, which, this team, when Clemson has won national titles, you alluded to going out to San Francisco and watching that blowout. They've had great defenses, but they've also scored in the 30s and 40s to win those titles, even scored in the 40s when they lost a title to Alabama. And what you're mentioning, sorry about that, Mac, when you're mentioning pushing the ball downfield, Klubnik also added this. He said, it's fun. You're running around, getting set, snapping the ball, getting 6 yards, then you're taking a shot. Then 6 more, then taking a shot. It's just fun. That's the best way to describe it. So it seems the screen pass is not completely disappearing, but Clemson has, prior to this last era, Clemson was really effective with the screen pass, getting 4 yards on first down, and then being able to open things up. So I think you'll definitely see a lot more deep shots. That's a great sign, and that's something that this offense has missed. I would add this too, and we talked about this when Garrett Riley was hired. The Riley tree, whether it's Lincoln, Garrett, whatever, they are known for quarterback play and air raid and all this stuff, but they also are very, very intent on running the ball. Always have been.
Yeah.
And so I do think the run game is still going to be super important. And Klubnik says we've got 2 of the best running backs in the country. And I've been noticing, Mac, different things on Twitter, wherever I'm just, looking around. I feel like Will Shipley is just not getting the pub, the respect, the buzz that other running backs are nationally. What is up with that?
Yeah, I think it's weird. I think the same for Maffa. I think both those guys, are I mean, it's been evident last year, the things that they've done in Will the year before, man, they're really good players. And I think if you look and see, okay, what did TCU do offensively? They ran the ball a ton. So just imagine what the offense is going to look like with a player of the caliber of Will Shipley, with, Phil Maffa. That 1-2 punch is going to be tremendous. And so for me, KG, that's where I think kind of the underlying piece that I'm excited to see. Just what's the scheme? Is it duo? Is it inside zone, outside zone? Is it a combination of all of those? What is his bread and butter going to be? Because for us, when I was playing, and I know thereafter, it was inside zone. Like that's just what we did. If we needed to play, we're going inside zone, maybe a power, maybe a counter. But that was our bread and butter there. What is his going to be? What is this offense going to look like? Because I think the versatility piece with really both those guys, everyone kind of thinks more of, Will Shipley just because, he's been up for these other awards and the things that he does in the return game. But they're both, pretty versatile in catching the football on the backfield, the things that they can do. So it's 2 chess pieces that keep it under the radar. That's great. Let them do their thing and let them kind of function with low pressure from an outside perspective, because I think they're only going to blow everything out of the water that we might think they can do.
Yeah, and I'm also intrigued to see how much Klubnik is used in the run game as well. I think that's going to be really interesting. And perhaps with Shipley, just talking about Shipley for a second, because he is kind of the bell cow when you look, even though Maffa's going to get tons of run. But I think, it's similar to when you follow a Trevor or you follow a Deshaun. I mean, you're the guy that replaced Travis Etienne. So it's hard. It's hard to say, this guy's playing at the same level as Etienne. Etienne is most likely the greatest running back in the history of the ACC. So I think maybe some national people look at Clemson and they say, oh, he's not Etienne. But who is Etienne? We've seen what Etienne is doing in the NFL with the Jags. So I think there's part of that with Shipley. I'm also interested to see if they use Shipley a little more in the passing game. Try to just be. It's just the creativity, Mac. It's the creativity that we need to see, and then the E word that I used all year that our listeners are probably tired of me using, but the explosiveness. You have to be explosive. You have to get big plays. You can't just line up there starting on your own 20 and expect to get 5 every play and go score. I mean, that's not going to happen. So I'm excited to see where the creativity comes from because I really assumed there will be more offensively.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And again, don't forget about the talented tight ends that Clemson is going to have as well. I mean, there's weapons to be at his disposal. When Cade, is talking about Antonio, who was a freshman All-American, last year. Cole Turner came on, exploded onto the scene in his last couple of games there. Adam Randall is a guy that I think there's some big expectation there because he's just a big target. I know he seems like he's always hurt, and I think that's the case
problem.
where it's like these bigger receivers that Clemson has had recently. It's you can't stay healthy, and so is it something that's super minor and he'll be fine because we've seen his talent, and kind of same thing with Bo Collins. Bo has been dealing with the injury bug a little bit this last season and a half as well, but I think guys will emerge. I think there's some young bucks that are hungry, but at the end of the day, I think what we saw starting in that North Carolina game is the QB position can make everybody better. It can elevate and rise the talent and get people going. So there might be guys that maybe we either forgot about or don't quite know about yet that also step up and end up having really good years at the receiver position. That's one thing that I'm really kind of watching is can Clemson get back to that wide receiver use spot that, man, for a run there, it was going with anybody in the country in regard of talent.
And that's, I think, the big question. And of course, injuries are a concern. Bo Collins will be able to participate in individual drills, but is still limited. This spring, Adam Randall will miss the spring with a knee injury. So, of course, I feel like any Clemson fan reads that and they're like, oh, here we go again. But there's other guys that Cade can work with when you look at Antonio Williams and Cole Turner, of course, and just there's some other really big names. But that's still a little concerning, I think, from an injury perspective, Mac. What's the biggest thing when you go to these practices and you call the spring game? And of course, we will have another episode to recap all that because Mac will be there. What's the biggest thing that you think we need to see or that you want to see from Klubnik when you go to practice? And I know in a spring game, it's not live, that we'll see what they do, but generally you don't let them touch the quarterback. What's the biggest thing that you think you need to see from Klubnik?
For me, it's just going through his reads quickly. That Tennessee game, it just was a little overwhelming at times. And he played really well. Don't get me wrong. But, I felt like there was almost too much on his plate, and that caused him to slow down a little bit, not in the good way, as a player, and just not be able to process things as quick. And maybe it's even just that freshman ability where he thinks it's still high school and faster, stronger, better.
That's still open, but it's not.
Yeah, it's just not the case. So, I think just anticipating quicker, like having answers quicker and throwing the ball away is good. Like it's not a bad thing. I think so many guys, we saw Sam Howell be kind of cursed with this. He just tried to hold on so long and eventually, would get sacked or lost or a negative play. So I think just seeing the operation speed up and seeing that jump from freshman to sophomore, first year guy to second year guy, that's where we see a really big jump from quarterbacks, I think. And seeing that from him will be really important. And, I fully expect that. I mean, I think that he's going to be a much different player, much better player when I go down and see him in the spring.
Yeah, I agree, Mac. I think some of that just learning how your ability translates to the college level. I felt like at times against Tennessee, he would think, oh, I can beat this guy to the outside. And the answer is no, you can't. I mean, it's just, that's not going to happen. So learning the speed of the game and just learning how your abilities translate there. When he says we came into a game, and maybe he's talking about the Tennessee game, with 80 plays, and now we're at 30. I'm just curious, Mac, for you, let's say that senior year where you guys went to the national title, how many plays would you go into a game with?
Yeah, it it's hard to think, like, what is he calling plays?
Sure.
Is it a bunch of formations? Is it motions that maybe you don't run all the time? Because I guarantee they don't just have 80 different unique
But
running
it's
passing plays.
variations
Like,
off of things.
yeah, it's so many. So I would be interested to know how much of that, and then to simplify things. I mean, is the way to go. I mean, I remember back in the day, instead of swapping film, there was, and I forget what coach it was. It might have been the Packers. It might have been Lombardi. He would just send the playbook. He wouldn't send plays. He'd say, "Here's what we're going to run. Figure it out. If you can stop it, great."
Good luck.
And so I think at the end of the day, just when you execute at a high level, when you do what you do best, it's hard to stop. It's hard for other people to stop. So that's what I'm so intrigued to see. Shoot, KG, we probably had 30, 40,
okay,
maybe 45. And I think the more simple you can be, the faster everybody can play, the same page you're all on. It's more so the chess match between the OC and the DC of when to run it and how to show it. At the end of the day, we might run inside zone, but we show it to you 10 different ways, but it's the same play. And so, looking at it from that perspective, I will be interested to see the motions, the formations, just different ways that we can show as an offense, we can show what this is, but it's the same thing.
That's interesting. Yeah, and it's more the little trickery where for a split second, a linebacker has to think, and then that gets you 5 yards or whatever it is. Okay, speaking of linebackers, let's talk some defense, Mac. Now, we've mentioned some injuries. I'll add this on. We have learned that defensive tackle Rook Arororo and defensive tackle Peyton Page are both out for the spring. And then, this is just crazy. Super senior defensive end Xavier Thomas once again had surgery on his foot and will be limited in spring. That guy has had the worst injury luck, maybe of any Clemson player in the Dabo Swinney era. But we do need to get to this Peter Woods hype. And Mac feels a certain way about this, and I want Mac's real thoughts. But here's what Nick Eason said about Peter Woods, the 5-star defensive tackle coming in from Alabaster, Alabama. Nick Eason, his own coach, said this. Peter Woods has the twitchiness and the power and the quickness of some dominant NFL defensive linemen that I've been around. I'm not going to crown him the best ever or the best of this or nothing because proof is in the pudding. Obviously, he's got to play this year, but I would say he has the talent level to obviously be an All-American, one of the best who's ever come through Clemson. And then I saw Dabo Swinney's quotes saying he's ahead of where Christian Wilkins was. Mac, how do we feel about, because I feel like Clemson coaches have done this. Didn't Dabo say DJ had like a better arm than Trevor or something? I mean, obviously DJ had power, but how do we feel?
I just don't love putting all this expectation on them. I just let them do it on the field. Let other people maybe say that.
Right.
I don't know.
Not your own coaches. Maybe let the media say it.
Maybe he's that good. Maybe KG. Maybe. We'll see. And I'll let you know when we go and see it. But I don't love putting all that. He's already has all this pressure, and now we're doing that to him. But hey, they've been super excited about him. Coach Swinney has, even before he got to Clemson, called him the best defensive prospect in the country. So there's a lot going there. There's a lot of expectation that I think Peter Woods is going to have. And the good thing is, with you see at Clemson, there's going to be opportunity. They're going to rotate defensive guys, and if he's not a starter, which Clemson has great talent on the interior that came back, that I assume they'll be the guy. He's going to get reps, and he's going to be able to compete and really have a part in it. But I don't love just in the first week and a half of spring ball, comparing him to some of the greatest that have ever played for Clemson. I think there should be a little pause there.
It's just is it necessary, right? Because I mean, he already has so much hype. He's a 5-star, and he was the gem of the class, and everyone's super excited about him coming in. Do we need to compare him to Christian Wilkins, who I think should probably end up in the Clemson Ring of Honor for the highest level of honor for a Clemson player? I don't love it, Mac. And like you said, the coach is saying it. When I think of the past couple years, because it didn't used to happen, because you wouldn't say, oh, Sammy Watkins is the next Sammy Watkins, because you didn't really have someone to compare him to. Sure. But when players come in and you say, oh, he's faster than Sammy was on day one, or he's more explosive than Christian Wilkins, or he has a better arm than Trevor Lawrence. Like, why? Why? Just stop. Let's please just stop doing that. And you and I, we know Dabo. We love Dabo. Sometimes he just can't help himself. He says what he's thinking. But let's keep the cards closer to the vest, Mac. I'm with you on this.
Let it be a secret. Let everyone figure that out. Don't go telling. Now they're game planning for this guy. You're losing an edge. Yeah. You're losing an edge there.
Well, and you mentioned him getting time with Rook and Peyton Page being out for the spring, and Xavier Thomas. He's going to get he's going to get a lot of time there. Okay, speaking of the defense, I want to talk about the secondary. And you mentioned this when we talked about Clemson trying to force the ball more downfield, especially in practice. Will that help the secondary? The secondary at times last year was probably one of the true glaring weaknesses for Clemson. And Wes Goodwin, the new offensive coordinator, he said this about his secondary. He said, we need to get more confident back there and freaking challenge receivers. That's what he said. And play more press man, tight coverage, deny releases, get our hands on guys, freaking be violent. He's throwing some freakins in there, Mac. Do you think, besides the offense and just the changes, because there's so much new with offense, is your biggest question beyond that the secondary? Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, just because there were so many big games that we had never seen happen to Clemson before. In regards to guys going over the top, just really not even competitive throws. Like guys are just wide open, down the field, which was very rare for Clemson. When you think of the defensive backs that the Tigers have produced and guys that are in the NFL really playing at a high level still right now, we weren't used to seeing that from Clemson. And so when we did last year, it was like, whoa, like what's going on here? And then you kind of dive into it. It's a lot of young guys, a lot of inexperience, and they kind of got baptized by fire there. And so I have really high expectations for that group going into this year. I think that the talent is undeniable. Hopefully now the knowledge piece is catching up with the physical body and, just that natural progression of, going from a year one starter to a year two starter and so on and so forth. I think that there's some real opportunity there. I think Clemson has the opportunity to have two of the best safeties in the league, Makuba and Mickens and some other guys that'll jump in there and play. It's going to be really interesting to see just, what's the strength of this team, because kind of like last year that there is so much potential for what they're going to be able to do. Now, depth might not be as big a thing, just because, Clemson's losing 3 potential first-round picks. I mean, just there's going to be a little bit of a drop down. But I think just looking at that secondary, and can a guy like Nate Wiggins really take that step of where you think, okay, this guy can be a first-rounder, this guy can be a A.J. Terrell type guy. That's what will be interesting to see, because, again, I think that he can. He has the swagger. He has the ability. He has everything you want. Can you just put it all together for a 15-game season and, be shut down, for your team? I think if we, see the North Carolina, Nate Wiggins, look out, because that guy was unbelievable, at his time there. The next piece that I'm really interested to see, KG, is that linebacking core.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter are the 2 best linebackers in the country. They're fast, they're physical, they're explosive. Each, kind of similar what I was talking about with the running backs, unique in their own way, but versatile in their own way. I think that Barrett Carter he's just Weapon X. And then you got the Axeman and Jeremiah Trotter that was an All-American. He wasn't good enough to be All-ACC, but he was good enough to be an All-American.
As Dabo would say, don't forget about Woodaz.
That's right, and Woodaz. I mean, the things that he did. I mean, he was in that Isaiah Simmons role against North Carolina, floating all over the field. So this Clemson defense, I mean, they've got another shot. And I know we said that last year and it was a little inconsistent, but now you've got a full year as a coordinator. Wes figuring out Coach Goodwin, doing his thing, what he wants to be, what he has, kind of looking at all that talent. I'm really excited. I mean, I'm excited about offense because that's what we do, but I'm really excited about this Clemson defense and thinking the things that they're going to be able to do, to folks down the line.
And what I like about this Clemson defense, even though we talked about there are some injuries at this point, but I think you have a lot of young, hungry guys. Yeah. You don't have, you had some vets last year who kind of been there, done that. Yeah, they were still trying to increase their NFL stock, whatever. But you've got a lot of young, hungry guys who are trying to prove they belong at the next level or even trying to prove they belong on the field. And I think that's going to bode well for Clemson. The linebacking core, to me, it is the thing that Clemson fans are probably most excited about. I wouldn't say it's a question mark. Like, I think that's just, you've got the
Not a
talent.
question.
You're going to figure it out. The secondary is kind of the question of how that's going to look. But the linebacking core, this may be, I mean, you could compare it to last year, but the best just top to bottom if you look at the 3 starters that Clemson's had in a very long time. So, yeah, this defense, it's
And KG, that's like proven. We're not just saying that. I mean, that's guys that are All-Americans and will be on All-American lists. It's not a question of talent or production. Like, that's there. And that's, kind of form an opinion based off what you've seen. I love what you said about the hungry part, for this team. And you mentioned it specifically for the defense. I think it's the whole team. I mean, remember again, that for these last 2 years that have been below what Clemson holds themselves as the standard, all those guys before that had never not been to a playoff, had never not won the ACC. Well, now there's been this little bit of a hiatus from the playoff, one of 2 of the last ACC championships. It's not just here we are, and there's other teams ascending. I think that Clemson is able to kind of redevelop that chip, which is great for any team. We saw Georgia last year. People said we're going 6-6. Who said that? Nobody. So it's great to kind of develop that chip and get that back. And to really have just a hungry team that, man, I think it's going to be business as usual for the Tigers and get back to what they were doing. I cannot wait to see that Florida State game. We're going to talk about them next week.
Oh, yeah.
I hope we get it twice because that's what the ACC needs. That's what the world needs to see that high-quality football. And, man, I can't wait, KG. I really can't.
You ended this perfectly, Mac, because we will talk Florida State next week, and I think you've got a very hungry Clemson team. I think you have a very hungry Florida State team. A Florida State team that is probably just overall more experienced than Clemson, who has not tasted an ACC title in a very long time, has been through some very tough times, but they're back. And I am very excited for Florida State Clemson, hopefully 2 games, and just the hype surrounding both of these programs. We will talk much more Florida State next week. And I'll just leave this here, Mac. Let's talk it next week. Let's not talk it right now. But our dear friend Greg McElroy, who came on the pod last summer, he said Florida State is the best team in the ACC for next year. He's already calling that here in March. So we'll get to that next week. I think it's really good to have FSU back in that realm. And I think it's going to lead to some really good and exciting football.
No question about it. We're going to have to get my man EJ Manuel back on this thing, too,
man.
because he's a little confident.
I bet he is. I bet he is.
Don't forget, man. But, yeah, that's it from us, guys. Another great episode. Gramlich and Mac Lane, presented by our great friends over at Ingles. Really appreciate their support. Some more fun things coming down the line with Ingles and all the great things that they do. But that's it from us, guys. If you're not watching us right now, come on, join us over on YouTube. Subscribe, mash that button. Really appreciate y'all's support over on there. And then the OGs, Apple Podcasts, rate, review, subscribe. We always love hearing a little feedback. So in the comment section, review section, y'all hit us up there. But until next time, we'll see y'all.